why don't each of you do a 1 minute, because otherwise I'm going to be crucified. Ricardo.
So I'm Ricardo Laza. I'm the CEO and founder of SiteWit. We are a machine learning platform for marketing. So it's basically for SMBs, for small businesses, to manage their digital marketing in the substitution of a Google and Bing on their own, or a small agency. So it's basically empowering SMBs to do their own marketing.
Toby.
I'm Brett Toby. I'm the CEO and founder of Carboyant. And our little pitch is Mint plus Twilio for cars. What we do is we provide tools and a trusted data store for connected cars. So we have a device, actually a bunch of devices now, plugs into your car. We work with different manufacturers. And then the driver can gather their own data, and we're providing tool sets to application developers to tap into that so the driver's trust doesn't get compromised.
I'm Sean Davis. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Channel Launcher, and our tagline is we're powering the next generation of video distribution, which for us is really white label Netflix. So it's no longer post yourself on YouTube. We're allowing high-end quality content video creators that are not things like movie and TV to come to market in a very similar fashion to Netflix. So that's where we're at.
I'm Joy Randalls. I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'm an investor, and I actually have a company that assists with startups on the business side. So I'm not a coder, so for everybody who saw it earlier, I'm not the techie. Pretty much everything else that's associated with a startup, that's what I do.
And Robin.
And I'm Robin Lester. Many of y'all know me as Robin Kowaleski. I too am not on the technology side. But I have started Florida Growth Partners. I've been involved with Florida Venture Forum for a number of years, and this is a consultant group that helps bring together emerging growth companies like yours with sources of capital, but mainly closer to home and keeping the funding here.
And you were the executive director for almost 10 years of the Florida Venture Forum with 2,500 member companies, and you were the person who took Sykes public.
That's true.
So you might have some minor experience in dealing with 1 or 3 investment bankers at some point in your life. We don't know.
Public, private, and in between.
So
You don't want to know about the in between.
So I'm going to start with the 3 gentlemen over here. Ricardo, SiteWit is how old, and then there was a predecessor company of sorts, but you've gone through some. So how old is your company? And I know you were getting on planes going to Silicon Valley and Austin, Seattle. Tell us a little bit about what your experience was raising money locally and raising money getting on airplanes.
So I got my first company founded in 1998. Before the boom times. Much easier to raise money at that time. I flew in one flight, presented in front of an executive team, and basically got a check. Today, that's impossible, right? I mean, it just won't happen. So the experience that I had was this. You're always better off, I would say this, I never raised without actually having a product. So spend your time to build a product of some sort. Now the product can be from a working prototype to a fake prototype, just like a screen, like a set of screens, but that shows how everything will work. But basically build something. Once you have something built, like anybody investing can actually gauge for themselves how good your idea is or how big the market is. And most of the time they have more data about that than you do, right? So they have, especially when you talk to VCs, they have tentacles out. They get fed pretty much every deal. So like they know if a certain industry makes sense, if a certain industry doesn't make sense. And then if they see what you're doing, they can decide if what you're doing fits within the equation. So my first piece of advice would be this: build something and then raise. The second piece of advice would be this: don't raise. So probably the biggest scars that I have by doing this for a long time, when you romanticize a startup and you think, well, the final success is to get a check. That's not the final success. Final success is to actually have a product that sells, right? Have people that actually like your product, that use your product. If you can keep your team small, build the product, get some traction, everything else fits in place, and you'll be able to raise at a much better valuation if you need to raise you might not need to raise. So what I would say is the later you raise, the better off you are. So with that in mind, when you build your company, build it that way. So you know, you don't need 10 people to start with. You need maybe 2 or 3 good developers. The other lesson that I learned throughout time is this: get one person in the team that's a good salesperson. Because if you have good technology guys or ladies, they're gonna build something great, but most of us are introverted. Most of us don't like picking up the phone and calling, and that means they might build a great product, but it gets no traction, right? So you need to have one person in the team that loves picking up the phone and, you know, getting your product out. That will be my second piece of advice. And then the third piece of advice is that once you actually have a product that sells and you have a good product and a good market and you understand the impact of a market, then it's the time to raise. And raising money from professional investors, professional partners, raises the game like nothing else does. Basically it takes a company and accelerates it to a point that organically, very rarely you can, right? So I mean, you start getting some clients and you're doing well and you have a team, and then you need to hire a business development person that might cost you $300,000 a year, right? That's a lot of money. But that person is literally the difference between you closing $15 million, right? So how do you take that decision? And where do you get the money to write the check, right? So that's where funding does come into place. And then in regards to raising locally versus other places, this is what I would say. We raised in Silicon Valley, we raised locally. Silicon Valley is great in the sense that they get it. So they're probably far more willing to write a check. However, though, they're not willing to write a check in Tampa. Right, so if you decide
So that's really what was meant to be the focus of this morning. So would you tell a little bit more about that part?
So first times we met with people, I mean, and we did Sand Hill, so we did like all them pretty much. If you look at the top tier VCs, and you know, Axel Partners, the guy that funded Facebook, MDV, Azure, which is pretty much the Microsoft money. We did all of them. I don't remember all of them. We talked to Sequoia, all of them. Basically, the first thing that they say, they ask you, oh, because obviously they like what they see. I mean, you don't get a meeting if they don't like what they see. They don't waste their time. Once they like what they see, they say, hey, that's great. Well, where are you guys? Oh, we're in Florida. And then they in Tampa, and they go like, oh, Tampa, what's in Tampa? They laugh, what's in Tampa? You go, no, it's not bad, it's a good place. And then they say, well, normally we don't invest past the Rockies, right? So that's the first thing they say. And then second, they go, well, you know, we'd love to do business with you, but you know, you have to move, right? So basically that happened to us in 2008. We left money on the table because we had to move, and me, I mean, personally, I couldn't move, and it just didn't fit. But so it's very difficult to raise money from over there. Here, we did finally.
And why is it difficult to raise money locally?
Ooh.
No, locally it's difficult for a different reason. As far as the institutional money, he knows more than I do. Okay, so we've raised primarily from angels locally and stuff like that, and that money is so it, as much as everybody wants technology in Tampa to go, it seems like there is almost like it's almost like a dark horse. People go like, we would love to see a technology company go here, but we don't understand technology enough to where we're going to write a check.
Well, it's a difference between
It's almost a perfect transition.
Yeah,
so.
perfect transition.
well, you get the, you know, and first of all, you can't, don't be a whiny little bitch because somebody doesn't like your idea. You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
Plus local meetings.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. When you go to the meetings in
I
Silicon Valley,
wouldn't say refer.
they just yell at you, they make fun of you. Okay, they go, oh, that idea is good, but it's stupid. Like, as you're going through the slide deck, they go, faster, faster. Like, you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, I'm trying to go. So
I said you had 5 minutes, but I really meant 2. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, that's right. So like, if they yell at you, don't cry, because actually they do it on purpose. They do that to like see what you're made out of.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, they're very conflictive. They go like, oh, that's stupid, so-and-so did it. Even though they never did it, right? So you have to explain, no, and
There's 25 different competitors, and they're all going to kill you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Moving on.
Exactly.
But the you can't complain about an investor not liking your stuff, because all it means is that you didn't communicate well enough, or you didn't have the right set of information for them to feel comfortable parting with their cash. It's based, and locally, I know that there's money locally. I've been in the poker games, I've been golfing at Palmacia, and it's like, oh, you could fund a company with that. In the local environment, people invest in what they know. And when, people talk about, like in the Valley,
So what do they know locally?
locally, they know companies with trailing revenues. So you have a lot of capital locally that's come to Tampa, or it's capital that's been built up in the traditional, hey, real estate. There's lots of folks here who are interested in investing in real estate.
And that's doing really well now.
No comment. The returns on some tech portions are doing better than some of the real estate stuff. But Roberta's advice about invest in product. People they're basically betting on a team, and they're betting on something they see. So if they don't know the team and they can see something, and it's close by, they'll watch the team. We were even before I started Carboyant, the offer was, hey, we'll fund you in California. So we were planning on moving. Little hole opened up around the house. 30 cement trucks later, we are still stuck in Florida. But if you're willing to go to where the investors understand what you're doing, then you can do it. But started funding in Florida, part of it is you need to see more successes. My point in the last panel about, hey, there's lots of kind of a diaspora, people out of town who've done things in technology, can we get them back connected? If you've got a tech idea with a product, but no revenues, it's going to be a challenge. It's the Florida Venture Forum, and there's somebody from an EDC going, hey, we made loans. The threshold to get through these things
especially
is a little bit farther on the game. So it depends on what stage.
Pre-revenue companies, particularly in Florida, are
You're toast. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you have connections, great. We got a couple of local angels, outstanding. It is excruciating. It's almost, we actually sat down when we were being masochistic, going, well, how much did it cost us to raise that money? Bad idea. Get on a plane, go out of town, or just shut up, sit down and build it. Because until you have product and until you have revenues, the local community is going to be extremely difficult to crack. If you've got the connections, if it's a multiple, you've gone through this a few times, you're going to build up that network, makes it easier. So if you're first time local, I mean, I could get funded actually we were funded out of New England, California. So you go where your connections and roots are, but part of it is we need to come back around and build up that early stage, because the deal flow, we listen to some whiny VCs in the state of Florida. We go, oh, there's no capital. I'm like, yeah. You know why? Because the deal flow is going out of state, because you guys are too hard up front. So the talent's here.
What are the
We just
kind
need to start about
of deals that you were, that the few of them that were willing to offer? What were they like? We did.
Be honest. Full truth.
Now we actually were lucky enough to get we have outstanding investors, but in the Valley, convertible debt at an early stage makes sense, because they realize, you look at the scale of the opportunity you're trying to tackle, and you go, you know what, we need to leave. They understand the economics of several rounds of valuation. We had an angel group that we were talking to, and they said we typically take 40%. I'm like, well, what's your success rate with that? Because at
And
40%,
10% warrants?
yeah, and
So
40%, so 50% effective of the equity does not, that precludes the next round.
Absolutely.
And literally, we had one VC who said, you know what, we spoke to these folks, they said, do not do that. We said, well, we already shut them down, but the economics don't work. So you have to get a group that understands the economics. We did priced stock, but we did it priced with the understanding of what multiple
Yeah, I
prices
wasn't
are.
actually asking deal terms. I was just trying to say.
I'm not going to give you the deal terms.
I wasn't trying to. What I was trying to say is local Florida market versus southeastern regional market versus larger country market.
There is no
The
southeastern
mentality
regional
of
market.
the mentality of the people on the deal structure.
Right. There's
Super local, less local, and
There is no southeastern venture market. There are communities in the southeast, and we have an investor in the southeast. We have an investor in the northeast, and we have an investor in the west.
And when you say that, you're talking for pre-revenue companies and early stage companies.
If you're a Series BC company, fine, you're gonna, it doesn't matter where you are because you're looking at the metrics of the company.
Right.
But when you're looking at
A
early stage
pre-revenue
company,
or-
well, even early post-revenue, the metrics are so loosey-goosey that it's like, hang on, let's see what happens. They're betting on the idea, they're betting on the market.
I'm just trying to make sure that the audience knows the context in which you're saying these statements, that's all.
Yeah, that's probably a good.
That's all I'm trying to
Yeah.
translate for them, okay?
Joel, I'm going to put another one of my presentations for later on because I've heard both of them talk about it, and here's the reason why. You're talking about the funding cycle, but a lot of times companies don't understand the growth cycle that a company needs to go through. It's two completely different
Yeah, but
things,
the
and it goes to what
The focus of
Ricardo.
today is to educate this room, some government officials, and a larger context, and come to a consensus
Yep.
about if you're trying to do this, what are you looking at? What are you looking at locally? What does the market look like? What are the solutions that make the most sense for you from people who've done it and who really, really know it?
And, this is, not sour grapes or spilled milk or anything like that. It's just, this is the reality of the situation. The different investors in different markets have different sets of experiences. I mean, if you're in the Valley and you're standing in line at Starbucks, you do that every day for a year and you're gonna know about venture funding, If you're doing that in, some parts of the Northeast and other locales, you're going to get a little bit more picked up. You're standing in line in Buckhead, you don't learn about venture funding at Starbucks, so just have the right set of expectations. But if you've got the right passion, you're willing to, eat glass and bust through walls and hop on planes, you can pull it off, regardless of where you are.
So I'm gonna let him throw the local market further under the bus.
I'm not throwing the local market.
No, I am.
Okay.
And
You can't give up 50% of your company, I'll say that straight up.
Thank you.
And get funded.
And by the way, there are more than, how many? I mean, we know at least 2 or 3, but the local market wants to do this almost enough. They want to what to the local people? I mean,
It's raping you.
What-
You know, I mean, I'm
what-
just
what
being
would you-
honest, I mean, you can't, the problem is, giving up 50% of your company means that you'll never get a Series B, Series C. That's the problem with it. It's not a matter of you being willing to give up 50% of your company, because honestly, to be clear, you will.
You will.
Yeah.
Okay? But it's giving it up front, because then the deal terms are so unattractive when you need those VCs who are gonna give you those big rounds to grow that business. There's not enough left over, and therefore, they'll kick the deal back and go, there's not enough in it for
Well,
me.
don't you think it's important to have good advisors, a good
Absolutely.
CPA, and a
Yeah.
good attorney to
Absolutely.
body block for you?
Yeah,
To tell you, don't be a bonehead and take this,
Right.
And if your exit strategy is to build it and flip it at $2 million and be out in,
fine.
then that's fine. Again, then 50% right now, it makes sense. But if you're tackling a big opportunity, or you know that you're gonna need more capital down the road. I mean, literally, to get the job done over time, we're gonna need more capital. You just have to work with investors. And that's why I was saying, don't whine about the investor's stupid. Investor's not stupid, you're just not a right fit. It's kind of like, when you ask somebody out and they say no, well, it doesn't mean that, well, sometimes it means you're ugly. in general, there's somebody for everybody out there. You gotta ask a lot of people out before you get the right yes. Not any yes, but just the right yes.
You want me to jump in?
Yeah,
You got it. All right, one of the things that you hit on was don't do a deal at 50% because it's stupid. I think we all understand, but there's actually a technical reason, which you also alluded to, which is there's not enough room left on the cap table to make it attractive to a follow-on investor. There's, in terms of the valuation and those types of things, that's where an advisory team that's been through this crap before is invaluable. I have a really good board on my team. One of them is bringing a breathalyzer test for cancer to market. And he's got tons of investors that are looking in the technology market, but they're not looking seriously at Tampa. And here's the thing that I hear repeatedly. There's nothing in Tampa, there's nothing, if you're doing startups, tech startups in particular, don't bother. If you're doing medical, then they may start paying attention. But if you're doing a tech startup, like if you're trying to be, if Instagram was thought of out of this market, it would go nowhere. It certainly would have been acquired for $1 billion.
Well, he would have gone out of town. The thing is, the talent is here locally. Tampa's kind of
That's an amazing gem, honestly.
under the rug.
People don't
kind of-
know. People just don't know.
Yeah.
We do an absolute atrocious job at marketing ourselves.
Absolutely.
I think
Well-
Shauna Bircher said that a couple of years ago. You experience it all the time.
Yep.
There's a
So
lot
we have
that
world-class talent, but,
Well, it's talent retention, because some of the talent goes.
yeah.
Well, there's no early stage gravity. So the problem
That's
is,
a good,
yeah, I mean, so basically what happens is once you get some shooting stars, right, there's no gravity, so they move somewhere else. Unless by sheer determination, being insane, whatever you want to call it, you plow it through, your wife crying in the car while you're driving around San Francisco. There's many reasons why you might not do it.
It's an entrepreneur's job to grow a great company, not grow a community. And so we need those early stage investors to come back into the community to help grow it.
I agree. So actually, if you look at what happened in Tampa in just restaurants, right? When you have the Outback group and grew out of here, and then they started funding other groups, and you know, they're from the vibrant community of stuff related to restaurants. What we need to do is the same thing with technology, but for that, we need an Outback, right? So like basically what we need is people, and many times, so the one thing that's difficult to find here, I think, is money, early stage. What should be easy to find though is clients. So I think as leaders of Tampa Bay, the bigger companies have a social responsibility
That they've abandoned.
to help us get clients. Not so much get money, right? But I mean, if you have a good idea, use the network to leverage it out and say, hey, you know what? Let's give this startup 200 clients so they can get, you know, the iteration process going. They can make a better product, all this other stuff, right? And then hopefully that will translate into an Outback. And then money will pour in because we're all obviously very passionate about what we do. We had a huge exit. I could definitely see writing like, you know, angel checks, no questions asked, like, you know, here you go, take it and do something with it. But it has to happen, I think, in that order. And it seems like we need to make that awareness be clear. I mean, there's a responsibility. If we want that to happen in Tampa, people at the top have to help. It cannot be just grassroots up, right?
and it has to be, you know, your point about getting corporate folks to help out. And I imagine you said you had 7 exits.
I did,
Okay.
yeah.
I was
only had
hoping,
one
I was hoping you
successful
were gonna
exit.
get to her, because that's where it belongs.
You know, it's not just the exits, it's got to be okay. I won't speculate on how many didn't go well.
There were 2, and they
Okay.
went really crappy.
So, you know, it's got to be okay to fail too.
Absolutely. You learn from failure. Failure.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't believe you're going to fail, no successful entrepreneur hasn't failed. I will
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah, I got that box checked.
So since you've really written both sides of this, you've invested with some of those people who give really bad deal terms, and you'd say, oh my God, I would never do those deals. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so just take 5 minutes and go where some of our conversations have gone in the past, where that you're comfortable and I don't get in trouble.
Okay. So I think everything the guys over here on the end of this have absolutely said is correct. So I'll take it a step further and I'll talk a little bit about kind of the deal terms that I've seen around here are not good. Okay, for the majority of them. So I'll give you some examples. The 50% deal, I've seen that multiple times. If I could say one thing, whatever I say, don't do it. Okay.
And by the way, there's like more than one person.
There is.
It floats a lot.
But it's worked for them, so they're going to keep doing it if it works for them. Okay. It's worse than Shark Tank. Shark Tank's way better. At least you get to keep like 50% of your company in the end, and they're much better connected than these guys.
Yeah.
So it's a different scenario. I do think that something. I'll give you an example of one that's gone really well, and then I want to talk about team really quick because I think that's really key. Anybody know who Kurt Long is in this room? Okay. So Kurt Long is now the CEO of his 3rd startup company, all based in Tampa, so in the Tampa Bay area, so we understand, in high tech. His first 2 companies, I've known Kurt about 13 years. First 2 companies, he took venture capital to launch them. So that means his piece out, not that he didn't do very well, he did. So he sold his second one to Open Network. Open Networks was the name of the company, he sold it to BMC. Okay, so names most people should know. Did that through venture capital. He has another company today called Fair Warning. He's not taken a dime of venture capital.
And why?
This is very quick. So we're
Because
having.
they won't give it to them.
I don't know about that. So we've had several conversations. I helped him when he was looking to launch it because I have a big background in security, and one of my companies is a security company that we do today. He made a strategic decision initially to bootstrap everything from the development. He developed a core product. He went out and leveraged his network to gain some customers. Then he went and got a strategic investor who invested capital to sort of match what Kurt had put into the company before. He gave up a very small portion of his company, since he's not the one, I don't want to speak too heavily about what that was, but he's done very well. The company will grow. It has grown. It's continuing to grow, and he will exit that company, and he will keep the majority of the money. I think that's a given. So they went after the healthcare market because he could do that in the state of Florida. The product applies universally across enterprise networks, even though they haven't targeted that yet. But this was an easy way for him to grow something locally and not have to spend all of his cash establishing a client base to then be able to go out and grow the business. So if he decides to take venture capital to go forward as things happen, he'll give up a significantly less portion of the company this time than he did the first two times. And team is a really good thing, and actually their group is a good example of team. So I think there's two things. One of the challenges I think with raising money here is there are a lot of people who've done this multiple times. The problem is it's hard to kind of bridge that gap. So if you go out and you develop a technology, right, and you get a core product, then you can come to people who've done it multiple times and say, I need to outfit my team. Because if you've got somebody who's really great at coding and they're really smart, and I've seen that a lot around here, by the way, what they don't seem to have on their teams, when I look at the teams, they don't have the person who could step in to be the CFO. They don't have the CEO. They don't have the person who does biz dev. So, you know, like what Robin was talking about, like what my group does, those kind of things are really important. So you need a couple of those people peppered in your organization, whether it's a consultant's working with you, whether it's an interim position, or whether that person says, wow, I'll either invest some money or I'll take a significant portion of what you want to pay me in stock because I believe in what you're doing, because they can do that. It will help you raise capital for sure, because you've had a person who's been successful at doing it before, and it will give you the framework that you need, right, to help grow that. And what makes, in my opinion, great startup companies is that diversity in the groups. You need people who come from all those different backgrounds, and you need that open piece. So that's my 2 cents. And I'll answer any question you want to ask me directly, by the way.
So Robin, so you kind of come from the institutional side.
Institutional side, but also from you know, New World Angels. We've worked with them quite a bit. And, you know, as one of the guys said, you know, Robin, I used to be able to stroke a check for $50,000. Now I have to ask permission from my wife. Because, you know, I mean, everyone's been hit the last few years with you know, the downturn. The one thing that I would say is, fast forward to 2012, you do have Sequoia down here. Draper Fisher Jurvetson does have investments here. John Doerr himself with Kleiner Perkins gets on an airplane and flies here to a company in Naples. So I mean, they're coming. And the other group that we've not really discussed are the international groups. These folks are trying to leverage their funds out of their countries: Brazil, Chile, Venezuela, Germany. I'm working with a group in Israel right now, working through Lockheed Martin. Again, strategic investors. It's not just the VCs anymore. It's not just the angels. Now you've got another wrinkle in time. We had a company, the guy couldn't even get through his presentation, and Sony bought his technology for like $28 million to put it on a shelf. They thought it was so dangerous and disruptive. Well, heck, he could, I mean, you know, yes, he wanted to change the world, but $28 million in a kid's pocket, heck, he can go build two.
He'll change the world with a different technology.
Exactly. You know, so I mean, I think entrepreneurs have to check their ego at the door, and you have to, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Sure, we'd all love to take a company public and ring the bell and you know, but
It's not always correct, I've done it twice.
it is, it's pretty, yeah, then you're on 90-day cycles. But so you know, I think you have to, getting venture capital, getting early stage investors into your company, you are choosing your parent, and you'd better choose them wisely. There ain't no divorce.
It's even scarier, it's like you choosing your parent, your child, and your spouse. at the same time.
Absolutely, that's it, because you've got to have somebody who's going to open up the doors for you, someone you can really rely on, someone you can go to and say, ooh, how to
Didn't
say
think
this
about
nicely, I just stubbed my toe big time, and not try to do the tap dance around it, just come straight out with it. That's what they want, they have to have that. You've lost credibility. And while you're looking for these groups in Silicon Valley or Boston or name your pick, you can still build relationships with these people. They do eat lunch. They do have a cup of coffee. You can go out with them and say, hey, here's my business plan. This is what I'm going to do the next 3 months. What do you think? And if they tell you you're an idiot, crazy, whatever, thank you very much, go back to them in 3 months. I told you what I was going to do. I did it. Now I'm going to do these 3 things. And you build a relationship, and then before you know it, the Kurt Long gets, you know, that's kind of how that whole thing started.
Yeah.
And then one person introduces him to somebody else, it strikes their fancy. And, you know, I think also entrepreneurs doing your homework and not just doing a shotgun approach and just carpet bombing these VCs. You know, you've got to know that, you know, HIG Capital is going to be interested in medical device, and, you know, they don't care about your cool new whatever else it might be. That another group might really care about that. And so, you know, spend your time, your money there. But it does take time to build the relationships.
And to Robin's point, I think picking your VC, if you're going to go to a VC or you're going to go to even an angel fund, right? Picking who you're going to go with is really key. So don't just look at those things. Look at what their portfolio looks like today, okay? Look at the portfolio. Are there companies in there that's complementary, where you'd have a shared customer base with the companies that are in there? That's really key. Look at what their track record is for companies that are doing something similar or in the same line or would appeal to the same client base as what you're going after. And that will give you a really good indicator as to how deep their connections are, where they run, and will they be able to actually open doors for you.
And it's got to be complementary though. 'Cause
Yeah, they won't take a conflict.
They will not take a conflicting investment, and if there's the slightest bit of the appearance of an overlap, one of the things we had to do was create this full, because we're going to provide tools.
Mhm.
Okay, well, if you're going to provide tools, you're going to have the whole reference, and you got to create the whole framework, which means you've got an app all the way through. Now, anybody who's ever funded an app, as we went back through and we're like, all right, well, let's dial back, you know, cut all those guys out. Sean and I were comparing notes on potential investors. You both of you touched on things that actually can be an advantage in Tampa. We were able to go much longer without funding
Absolutely.
here than we.
Lowers the cost of capital
I
every
would have
time,
burned
go
through.
figure.
Yeah, in Orange County, 4 months, I would have burned through what we burned through in a year here. And also the networks, you know, you talk about like John Doerr and Sequoia coming here. They're coming here for later stage investments.
They are.
But one of the nice things about Florida, I mean, you have Florida, Tennessee, and Texas, and a few other folks that don't have state income taxes. But of those, there is a much deeper concentration of golf courses and beaches here than there are in Tennessee.
Yes.
So, you know, we trump Tennessee, and Texas has both, but I've been to the beach in Texas, and I've
It ain't
been
all
on the
here.
golf course in summertime in Texas, and, you know, Florida wins there. So, you know, we get these networks we can tap into, and even if these guys aren't doing, you know, a seed stage investment, they'll point you at folks who are, or they'll point you at, for instance, we've got some meetings coming up with folks who are absolutely not investing in us right now, but they have a very big stake in our success, so they're lining things up for us, so that they've said straight out, we hope you survive 1 more year so we can throw money at you. That's a great thing to hear. Don't believe what people tell you, because they probably won't throw money at us in a year, but, you know, but they're throwing stuff at us now, which is good. So, you know, if you've got the right kind of company that can grow here, cool. If you've got a company that needs to go somewhere else to grow, like maybe you need to tap into some deep pool of engineering talent that's only available somewhere else. But if you can come back here, I mean, we're probably gonna have offices, actually, we are gonna have offices in Detroit, LA, and Tampa.
So we have about 12 minutes to wrap up where we're at. I've been helping each of you sort of focus on negative, and I wasn't trying to in the general sense, but I was also trying not to create a falsely rosy picture and just say, if you're in this, let's go into it eyes wide open and see with broad daylight, what am I walking into? But and I think each of you will also say, hey, there's some really good things here. Like, you know, you can get your wife really upset with you or what? No, but
By the way, it's a nightmare in the valley too.
Yeah.
It's not.
that's what I'm. That's what I'm
Doing this is you gotta be nuts.
It's like selling a script in Hollywood.
It's
Yeah. so-
Actually, Tampa, I think, is a much better place to build it. So it has a huge competitive advantage because they are narrow-minded and not very smart when it comes to this. Because you can actually put an office in New York, which basically means that you just get like, you know, an office space for $500. like, you know, put that on your website and suddenly you're in New York. Right? I mean, so basically you hire a salesperson in San Francisco, a salesperson in New York, and then you have the 3 offices, even though the headquarters are here. And you are in San Francisco, right? And it's like, oh, you're in San Francisco? Yeah, we're in San Francisco. Okay, great. That's it, right?
Some of the guys actually like to drive by and check on you, but
Yeah, no, but what I mean is like that initial reaction of, oh, I'm not investing in you.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay.
we got 3 offices.
Yeah, that's right. And also you're going to be coming to San Francisco because obviously you're not gonna just let it go, right?
But
So like they think that, you know, every once a month you're gonna be flying in, and that's where they're going to see you, and that takes care of it. So.
I think there's another reason that Tampa is a better fit. So I'll say, and I've had venture money from the Valley, you know, from guys on Sand Hill Road. I've had it from Boston, I've had it from DC, and I've had it from Texas. So, you know, kind of the gamut there. I'm not the biggest fan of the Valley, although I do have some buddies who are angels who invest out of the Valley, and they invest here and a lot of other places, right? Because they look for the one thing I find in the Valley, there's a lot of money there. They're very specific about what they want and the type of deal they want. They can be. They can be very specific about the deal terms they want, and they'll be very specific about each VC will have only specific types of technology they will invest in. They're experts at it, it's what they do, and they see so many deals all the time. And basically, if you want to agree to the terms, you will leave the money on the table because they won't do it any other way because they don't have to. I think you'll find that there's more flexibility on the East Coast in general from the VC community. And East Coast VCs, even up in Boston and DC and stuff, don't mind so much the guys down here if you've gotten to the point, you've built some customers, you've done those kind of things. Primarily because it's easier for them. So they're going to come see you, whether you like it or not. And so it's much easier to take a 2-hour plane flight from Boston to come down here. They get to go play golf and hang out. And
they co-invest with other VCs
They do.
here, so,
Yep.
So they golf together.
yeah,
and you know, Tampa Airport.
Is fantastic.
great.
I mean,
It's easy.
Probably its best asset.
it's what and why the hell don't we promote that?
I think that's one of the things we need. If anything comes out of this conversation, we need to be far more proactive in marketing Tampa Bay as a tech hub that's fundable, that has fundable startups, whether they're pre-rev, post-rev.
Easy to get to, fun to get to. I mean, you gotta go visit somebody in Atlanta in February, or you gotta visit somebody in, you know.
I'll choose Tampa Airport.
Tampa.
And
I can't tell you,
Tampa
I can't
for
tell you how
Christ.
many VCs, though, what people don't think about, and Robin will be able to attest this. There's so many VCs that have homes between here and Naples that come here anyway,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
right? So they're here,
Yep.
back and forth,
But
regardless.
But honestly,
Yeah.
stop just shy of stalking. You can actually.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a good point. That's actually a good point. And
You
both
need
of
to
you
hunt
actually
those
kind of
folks.
already spoke to it. Once you've got your research done, the next thing you need to do is figure out how to get an introduction to those individuals.
Yes.
Because an introduction opens all kinds of doors that just picking up the phone doesn't even come close to.
And
So-
if you can't get an introduction to somebody that you're stalking, then
You can fake drowning out in front of their house.
There's always a way.
Yeah,
There's always a way.
And their
yeah,
big
that's
yacht,
almost a
and
test
then-
of can you go out and sell your stuff? Because at the end of the day, if you can't sell anything, or your company can't sell anything, it doesn't have to be you. You are screwed.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter how cool your tech is. Somebody's got to sell it to somebody else. So getting the funding is almost this litmus test of can they turn around and sell this sunshine to somebody else?
Well, they look at that too. So when you were talking about like, don't let it get discouraging when they beat you up, because they're gonna beat you up. So if you go talk to 100, 95 are gonna say no right off the bat, right? The other 5 might listen to you for a little while, so don't get discouraged, but that is part of the game for them, right? And a lot of it is to see, do you have the tenacity to succeed in the end?
Right.
A lot of things you'll hear are things like, the famous one was, well, Google can do that.
Right.
Eventually, my response was, what do? You invest in companies. Google can do that too, so.
Right.
It goes both ways.
Actually, they do it.
I'm looking for an intro.
So we have about 5 or 7 minutes. We can either stay with us or we can take 1 or 2 questions real quick and do a wrap. So.
Tired of hearing this before.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
me too.
Okay, you.
I'm a technical co-founder of a small technology startup here in Tampa, and we just closed our first seed round, and we're looking for VCs. Can we talk about balancing between raising money with VCs, but also we have clients and we need to get stuff done?
Always do the sales call.
Yeah,
Always.
absolutely.
Blow it off. I blew off meetings in San Francisco this week for sales calls, and they're like, thank you. Always do the sales call.
Because you've got to prove that to the VC in the end anyway, so if you're proving that, and that's the other thing, funding takes a lot of time to raise money, big time.
And lots of angles too.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to focus on the operation and raising money at the same
Yeah.
time.
If they find you're blowing off sales.
They won't fund you anyway.
But again, I go back to this, that's where the attorney and the CPA can be very handy, because they are often the gatekeepers. For a lot of those folks, if they say, hey, Joe, take a look at this business plan, and they're getting 100 already, he's probably gonna look at that business plan before the others. So you're one step closer.
Yep.
I have a question as a new startup and just thinking about funding. I'm not sure that I need it yet, but I've started just initial conversations. What would you recommend as far as the deck and what information should be in there? What are they looking for?
Build a product.
Yeah.
Build a product and put 10 slides together. Actually, if you go to
Seriously, if it's more than 15 slides, don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And realistic
Fine is
numbers. Realistic, not like if everything goes perfectly.
Yeah, look up 10, 20, 30, and that'll give you your answer what your slide deck looks like.
There's, Dale Ressi's got a short thing as well about, get your pitch down to like 15 seconds. So,
Mike, what do you want?
Wow. Can you guys expound a little bit more on the importance of your advisory board and what that played in the role of your funding?
Actually, let me say something that was not really well covered here. The other thing I would say that you need to do, or you should do, if you ask me, is to build a team from the get-go. Right? So don't be the Genghis Khan entrepreneur on your own, even though you're Genghis Khan, right? Genghis Khan had generals. So get 2 or 3 really good people from the get-go that complement what you're good at. So if you're a good techie, get a salesperson. If you're a salesperson, get a good techie. If you're like in the data mining world, get a guy that knows data mining. If you're into machine learning, because I think the chances of you getting any type of, not even funding, just getting clients and a good product are exponentially higher. So basically, that's the best giveaway of your equity, if you ask me. Right? If you're going to take 30% of the company, give it away from the get-go, give it to 2 people that actually have the same reasoning as you. So they actually, they're together, everything is aligned, and they complement everything that will get you to that product, that will get you to that funding and everything else. Right? So it's only the first thing. It hasn't really been discussed. Most of the time, the first time entrepreneurs go out on their own. Second time, you realize, hey, you're better with people. And the third time, you actually realize it's the most important thing. So you're better off giving away from the get-go some stuff to do that. As far as the advisory board, it's critical, if you ask me, because it's the cheapest way to get in front of the most difficult people to get. So basically, it's free. You don't have to, or sometimes you have to give a small amount of maybe options. But if you get good people on the board, so the one thing is you need to have a good product, because if not, they're not going to be on your board. They're not going to be on your board on an idea. Nobody's going to go, oh, I have a great idea. Yeah, great. Go on, have a beer, and then come back. I mean, you have to have actually something, right? And then if you believe in it, then you could say, hey, sure, I would like to be on your board. And by the way, I know so-and-so that actually is in this industry. I'm going to give him a call, and I'll be happy to do that. So it is critical that you have something good for it. Because the advisory board is cheap. You can get really good people because it has very little liability. I mean, like a board of directors is a different ballgame. I mean, and get 2 or 3, 4 good people there. And especially if they're well connected, when the time is right, you can pick up the phone and say, look, we just released this. Can you put it in front of so-and-so? And it's like, bam, bam, done. Right?
Okay, so I'm going to give everyone else one
Sorry.
more minute, but I'm also going to do a plug for, I think you have a partner in the room, and he's going to do a presentation in the next hour.
Is there restaurant?
And what are you presenting again? I don't remember.
And machine learning systems, sort of the data.
I thought he was going to present how to kill your co-founder.
So we each have 1 minute to close, to pick whatever the most happy, useful bit of information you can share with anyone, both EDC and people, EDC and chambers, as well as people in this audience. 1 minute each.
I would say the best thing that we could do to get the deal flow going on the seed stage, which feeds the whole thing locally as opposed to watching it go elsewhere, is talk some folks into, somebody talking about stroking a check for 50K. Let's get people who are willing to do, 5, 10K checks and just treat, take that serious couple games of poker and say, I'm going to play poker with tech community.
Sean.
Promote the hell out of the community. You can see by this event that it's growing every year. I think we had 400 people last year. We've got 1,000 people this year. The company's growing. The community is growing actually very quickly. The other thing is, I agree with you. Good advisors. I think a solid board of directors that have raised capital and taken companies public, or at least having them acquired, is invaluable, and they're definitely worth the equity that you need to fork over. Their experience is actually absolutely invaluable.
I'll agree with everything that's been said so far, and I think putting together that team initially, so making sure that you get some people who will give you good advice, right, who've lived through this a few times before, is pretty critical. And you should be able, if you've got an interesting idea, you should be able to find somebody, whether they choose to invest or whatever, will spend an hour with you saying, do this, don't do that, or can I pass something by if I get a deal stuck in front of me, is this the way to do it, and get that input.
Robin.
All of the above, and I will play the Pollyanna. I really do believe this. At the end of the day, innovation will be funded. Innovation will be funded. It's how you communicate it, it's what you do with it. Get out there, don't let them say no. No is a maybe and a maybe is a yes.
So did anyone who liked this, put up your hand? Okay, so we didn't do too bad. Okay. Glad you had liked it. Now,
You just want to invest.
now I have one more favor. All of you who raised your hand, please help us. Please. Thank you, everybody.